Tonight on our front, we take a deep dive into Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia's proposed strategy to combat corruption, assessing its potential effectiveness and whether it can truly deliver the results for the People's Republic of Ghana. The show will explore the key pillars of his anti-corruption plan, which emphasizes value-based leadership, leveraging digitalization for transparent governance, and implementing robust legal frameworks. In fact, the Vice President of the Republic of Ghana instituted the clear-cut dictate during the manifesto launch that he has a track record of innovative solutions and a commitment to ethics and transparency. Dr. Bawumia presents a vision, as he says, for a presidency that continues and expands upon the anti-corruption efforts initiated since 2017. His plan includes the full implementation of digital tools of reducing corruption, advancing a cashless economy, enhancing procurement transparency, and tightening the legislative framework to prevent the abuse of political power. Our distinguished guest tonight in studio with me is the big woman at the helm of affairs of the Ghana Integrity Initiative, Mary Awelana Ada. She's the Executive Director of the Ghana Integrity Initiative, which she'll be joined on Zoom pretty soon by a former Auditor General in the People's Republic of Ghana, Daniel Jao Domilevo. And the former boss of Mary will also be joining this conversation, Vitus Azim. He's an anti-corruption campaigner, still very strong in the fight against corruption. These sets, I'm sure you would agree, are perhaps the best set of people to help us appreciate whether we've been sold the very best of policies to push the fight against corruption, or we are still going to continue a business as usual. They offer their expert analysis. We will discuss the feasibility of Dr. Bawumia's proposals and the challenges of implementation, and what it will take to ensure these initiatives translate into real, impactful change for the People's Republic of Ghana. Can Dr. Bawumia's anti-corruption master plan transform governance in Ghana and restore public trust? That is the core of our question. And let me welcome you very specially in studio. Mary, I hope you are doing well.
Thank you for having me.
Brilliant. And I understand that Mr. Daniel Jao Domilevo is already on, former Auditor General. I hope you are doing well this evening. And if you could unmute, I'm sure we'll hear you better.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know that I was muted.
Fantastic. Some say that sometimes the computer era has difficulties with people. But I appreciate your time this evening joining us from your base. Now, this is an important conversation. And it's an important conversation because we have complained about the extent to which corruption has actually dealt a heavy blow to this country when it comes to its resources. And part of our underdevelopment has been attributed to how our resources are planned as a people. Before Dr. Bawumia launches into what he will do, he took studious time to recap the very things that this government has done. Listing legislation, listing achievements from the Right to Information Act through to the other things that the government has done to push the fight against corruption. But I know that many will reference that the Transparency International's Corruption Perception Index has seen this government have some of the not so impressive records. Indeed, the worst rating under this government, the best rating to say under this government was the worst under its predecessor. A very damning, what they call it, verdict if you want. But is it interesting to you that Dr. Bawumia started recapping what has happened when it comes to the fight against corruption? Let me start with you, Mary.
Certainly, it would have been unfortunate if he didn't find a way of ensuring that he recounted some of the promises they had made in the past to fight corruption and also promote legitimacy, integrity in our systems. So for me, I believe that it was the right thing to do to benchmark the discussion we would want to all have, particularly on their manifesto, on some of the things they said they would do in the past and were able to do. I believe, for me, what was short would be then benchmarking that analysis and informing the future by that. That was not clearly done because in the conceptualization of every other thing they did not reflect some of those things like the Right to Information Act. How are we using it? What have been the successes? And how are we taking it into the future to ensure that we are promoting information access by citizens and utilizing same to ensure we fight corruption and do so vigorously. You
did mention the Right to Information Act. Indeed, the Vice President in the manifesto equally listed the Witness Protection Act of 2018, the Criminal Offences Act and its amendment, that's the Act 1034, enacting the Anti-Money Laundering Act of 2020, rolling out the Ghana.gov platform. Well, I don't know how that fights corruption, but perhaps that's one of the things that's been listed here. Increasing budgetary allocation to the police, 162%. The audit service, and Mr. Domilevo, you were very active in that office until somewhere around 2020, but the audit service received 83%. That's the increment in the allocation to that particular office. Shraj had in excess of 21% at the end of 2021 compared to what was the case in 2016 for the avoidance of doubt. Now, that big office of special prosecutor is being listed here too, and government in this document is also saying that it instituted a value for money assessment regime for single source and restricted tender applications, which has resulted, and this is the big part, in 2.3 billion savings between 2019 and 2021.
So what happened?
Oh, before you ask the what happened, I will certainly be asking other questions too. But Mr. Domilevo, it appeared under Akufo-Addo, a lot has been done, at least by way of legislation and increment of resources to the anti-corruption institutions of state. True or false? Yes, if you could unmute, sir. Yes,
sorry.
I think I can hear you now. It's perfect now.
Good. Yes, good. I'm saying that it is true, and the facts are there for anyone at all who wants to check that all those things have been done. But let me be quick to add, actually not only add but reiterate, that I have said time and again that setting up institutions and enacting laws do not necessarily lead to the fight against corruption.
But if you give them extra funds for their resources, in times past, we used to hear they've been starved of resources, but he is saying we gave them extra money, audit service, the special prosecutor, and virtually all the institutions of state that have been starved of funds in times past.
Yes, I was coming there. To be honest with you, it is very true, and from 2017, the budgetary allocation to audit service, even when I was there, had been increased. And I presume same for the other institutions. But those additional funding become fruitless and wasteful if the findings of the audit or the investigations are not put to use. So the fact that you found an investigation by itself is not what we are expecting. What is the outcome? I think after listing all those achievements in terms of enacting laws and allocating money, etc., the outcome would have been, so corruption perception has moved from A to Z, or to B, or to D, for us to applaud, to say, yes, because these interventions are being implemented and effective, it is changing. But if you have put all those in place and the situation remains the same, it means that the expenditure is a fruitless and a wasteful one.
Now, I think we can now go into the very things that the man wants to do now. Before that, you made a point about what happened. Exactly what's the crux of that point?
Yeah, so before I do that, I just wanted to indicate that in the office, setting up of the office of the special prosecutor, they just talk about setting up and then also establishing the office, appointing and establishing. not giving them the resources they need, because our advocacy has continuously been that that office needs the required resources from setting up of a forensic lab to others, which they still do not have. Admittedly, today we can say that the office has recruited some staff who have been there, but then if I say what happened, you realize that the document talks about from 2021 and comparing some of the things to 2026, and then they talk about the savings on the issues around the value for money assessment from 2029 to 2021. I can tell you that recently Imani and ASEP did a research that indicated that in the value chain of procurement in this country, most of the procurements are done single source. 85% of our total procurement budget is done through a single source means. So what are we saying? What happened?
We did value for money before it went through the single source.
What are we saying that some of the things we are procuring are so essential? Remember that the Procurement Act talks about when we can do single source.
That's true.
And do the value for money assessments follow through with the Procurement Act? That is the question we should be asking ourselves. Not 50%, 85%. And why is it that we have not also accounted? Raymond, let me carry on. Why is it that we have not accounted for 2022, 2023? Admittedly, we are in 2024. So why do we end in 2021? Are we saying Ghana stopped procuring? Are we saying we stopped doing the value for money assessments in our procurement regime? I believe we need more information on this. And we have continuously spoken to the fact that things are not going well. You've mentioned some of them, including assessment, not just of the Transparency International. We also have the Afrobarometer, which has shown the significant loss of trust in government when it comes to the fight against corruption. It's a big thing. We all need to agree that we have a problem. Until we agree that this problem is huge, and the former Auditor General has indicated, laws in themselves do not fight corruption. We need political will, and we need commitment, serious commitment, making pronouncements that signify that the person who is leading is actually walking the talk and not just making rhetorical statements and going behind the scenes to twist people's arms and not to do their work.
Now, those are interesting perspectives, but let me bring you in, Mr. Domlovo, to this important point. Now, it is proposed in this manifesto that a Corrupt Practices Act, which aims to consolidate anti-corruption legislation and mainstream lifestyle audits, will be enacted. How effective do you believe these measures will be in holding public officials accountable? And what gaps do you see in this approach?
I think this approach will be a good one, because one of the difficulties or the challenges we have is that the anti-corruption or the corruption-related activities are scattered in several legislations. So if they're able to pull them together, I think it will be a good thing, and I don't think it is bad. And also, if we can do the lifestyle audit, I think that is not bad. But like I said earlier on, and I want to make a quick intervention where Mary ended. Mary talked about the value for money does not exclude, is not a condition for doing single source procurement. Read Section 40 of the Procurement Act, and you see the conditions that do not include value for money. Even if you do value for money, you must still meet those conditions before it becomes qualified for single source. So that is very, very necessary. But the lifestyle audit, for me, is a very important thing. But then, we have not seen the content of it. We don't know what it is going to cover. And we don't know who and which people are being targeted. So until we get the details and we interrogate it, then we can know whether this is actually a lifestyle audit that will be fit for purpose, or it is just a law to tick the box.
But we'll be having this conversation in times past. I'm sure you remember that as a critique You yourself, your critique of the Public Officers Conduct Bill is that it doesn't have the full force of the issues that it should be in that particular bill. Others have also said that there is an urgent need because Yoko has told us that they can't conduct any of this without a predicate offense when it comes to money laundering. We also been told by the Office of Special Prosecutor that it has limitations when it comes to dealing with lifestyle audits.
Exactly.
This, to many, sounds like a bold move.
No, we are not saying it is not. And let me start by saying that in enacting a Corrupt Offences Act that is exclusive to just the fight against corruption is the best thing we have continuously spoken to. However, we need to cure the issues you are talking about. The restrictions in the definition of corruption per Act 29. If you look at it, it focuses excessively on corruption. Even in the Constitution, you would realize that it talks about we are taking steps to curb or to stop the abuse of power. And so you see, we are stopping corruption and the abuse of power. But when you go to Act 29, which has been amended severally, we do not have a corruption definition that is exhaustive enough looking at the UNCAC framework and how it puts the various indicators to help us to fight corruption. And so if we bring all the legislations we have currently together, we will still have a problem. It will not be enough. We need to identify the critical issue, and that is the limited scope of our fight against corruption. That is why people continue to get away with some of the infractions, and that is why the OSP has found difficulties in doing his work. So that limitation is a big one. And you see, when you talk about the asset declaration, which is Article 286 that you spoke to, we need an asset declaration regime. This alone speaks a lot about the focus of this government in the fight against corruption. The COPO bill, as we have it, encapsulates the issues around asset declaration.
Okay.
And our advocacy, it's in fact part of the IMF conditionalities that we would pass this. However, we have spoken to the fact that this bill is not standing on two legs. If it is passed in its current state, we will not be making any headway.
Okay.
Because we need to be able to criminalize other conducts that are including conflict of interest. We need to ensure that we have an asset declaration regime that we can verify and also publish. And you see, it's not a new thing. We have had that.
The question is to expand the asset declaration.
To expand, yes.
To include stuff, and there will be more frequent updates too.
You see, currently what it says is certain individuals within a certain salary range. Are we saying we are going to bring everybody on board? If we are doing so, let's do so. But it doesn't, I don't think that is the essence. The essence is for certain office holders who hold a certain capacity, who can inform decisions and make corruption happen, to do that. So if you go and pick a watchman who doesn't have any capacity to deal in certain things, it would not make, excuse me, sense to me that you are doing that. So the current law on who declares is very clear that is a director or a person within a director's salary range. So why don't we go from there and then think about the bill as it in its current form, talking about not focusing on the issues of verification and not very clear when it comes to the limitation on gifts. This is very clear. When you go to the UK, they have the £100 limit. If a public officer accepts gifts, these are some of the critical issues. This Bawumia, Honorable, His Excellency,
yes,
the Vice President should be talking about. We want to see the clear practicalities he's bringing on board. But when we talk about just expanding it to bring others on board and updating every 2 years, the Constitution talks about declaring your assets upon taking office and also declaring after. But then the Act also talks about updating it every time. Nobody restricts you from updating your assets. So Raymond, if you are a chief director and you acquire certain assets within your tenure, nobody stops you from going to the Auditor General to declare those assets. So this one is a non-starter for me, I believe that there are many other things we can put into the assets, and I've mentioned some. We need to be very clear that the people who are declaring their assets do so, and we need to ask that they publish them. We also need to ensure that we are verifying those assets. In other countries, Africa, they are monitoring people's assets. Why are we not doing so? We should have an unexplained wealth.
Privacy.
Yes. Oh, no. If you are a public officer is a person who lives within the public, and you should be ready to let people know who you are. There is nothing to hide. You are serving the public, and you shouldn't have any restrictions on your life.
Now, I need to bring you in here because you have also been quite critical of our assets declaration regime. You've said when you are Auditor General that you're going to put together a website or everything related to that. In fact, you felt that the current regime was a bit shambolic. Are you impressed with Bawumia's proposals for dealing with the asset regime difficulty, asset declaration regime?
Thank you again once more, Raymond. Am I unmuted? Because
Yes, I can hear you perfectly, sir.
Good, all right. Before getting there, Mary talked about the corruption issue, and I want to add that if you look at Article 35, 8, that is clause 8, it says that state shall take steps to eradicate corrupt practices, not practices, and abuse of power. We have to define what constitutes corrupt practice and what constitutes abuse of power. If we don't do that, we can just be passing law and in order to tick the box and say we are fighting corruption. That said, in my candid opinion, some of the issues raised in the asset declaration are a bit funny. It's like you've beaten, you have not yet chewed, and you want to bite more. From my point of view, the last time we did a count when I was in office, there were about 50,000 people to declare their assets and liabilities. That by itself is huge. Some of them are low risk. They don't pose any risk at all. So I even think that some people should be taken off the list. The people we should focus on are people who are holding public funds, who are in a position of influencing expenditure and revenue, such that we can ensure they don't use our money for unintended purposes. Mary raised a very interesting point of them saying, no, not Mary, they mentioned that every 2 years you have to declare. Are they going to amend the Constitution? Because the Article 286 requires that after declaring when you come to office, it should be every 4 years. Are they going to amend the Constitution? I don't know whether that is what they are going to do. And mind you, it is an entrenched clause. It is not an ordinary clause in the Constitution. So the truth is this. We are looking for very concrete things which will make asset declaration effective. One of them is verifying the declaration. The second one is publishing the declaration. The third one, clear-cut punishments. Currently, people violate the declaration. I was today in a conference and I was saying to some people that if they said declare your assets before you can become Auditor General, and you become Auditor General for 2 weeks, 1 month, 1 year, 2 years, and you have not declared your assets, are you not occupying that position unconstitutionally? And if yes, to me, the logical thing we should follow that is move from the office. So here we have former chief justices and justices of the Supreme Court, heads of department, etc., who are supposed to declare their assets before assuming those offices, and they have not. And all we do is that we are told, go and sin no more. So we need a law to tell us what are the consequences for misdisclosure or incomplete disclosure and failure to disclose, etc. Those things must be clearly stated out, because Shraj has continuously said that without that, it's difficult for them to say, Daniel, leave your office because you didn't declare, because the law has not stated, which I would have wished that they contest, that because you are not dressed appropriately, you can't be in the dining room. Thank you.
No, that's an interesting perspective there. I mean, of course, I've heard you expand on that point about if you are not qualified to enter in the office, you are actually not supposed to be occupying the office. Is it a point you agree with?
In the first place to be occupying an office without declaring, because the Constitution, as he said in Article 286, clearly specifies that you are making sure you declare that within the period And so if you are not doing that, it means you have no business being where you are. And it's very clear. It's just that we are in a system where people would say the truth and then you are rather vilified for saying the truth, unfortunately. So there's no argument whatsoever about the fact that if you haven't, we perhaps may say the person could cure the issue when they come to realize it. But for every public officer who is recruited, I believe they go through a certain assessment and they also have some refresher courses for them to understand the office. And also I know the political actors as well have some orientations where they are taught what to do and what not to do. And so in that case, if you are taught what to do, and one of those key issues is to let us know what you have. And let's not forget, we talk about the assets and forget the liabilities. And that is, for me, the critical challenge, because people can do things in this country. We have heard some before. So we need to ensure that it is exclusive for the assets and also liabilities. We should pay attention to that.
Now, Mr. Doblogo, there is a point you need to pick your brain on. Dr. Bawumia's plan includes the establishment of an e-marketplace for public procurement. How critical is such a marketplace in ensuring transparency? And what measures should be in place to avoid the pitfalls that similar initiatives have faced in other countries?
Is that to me?
Yes, sir. I was asking about the e-marketplace for ensuring public procurement is done properly.
Yeah, that is also a good initiative. But you see, we must do the basic things and get them right first. Otherwise, we are building on a very bad foundation. If you look at the public procurement law itself, I have a problem with it. You look at the public procurement law, you see the president appoints a number of people, the minister of finance, a number of people, attorney general, the number of people. So it is the same group who are being represented over there. No surprise, they give approval for all sorts of things. So we may have to look at it and see how do we insulate that approval from the executive who wants to do the wrong. So if we bring an electronic system, the best we can talk about is garbage in, garbage out.
Okay.
If you don't have the basics, right, the computer is not going to change your name and say that Daniel Domelevo doesn't sound well, so I'm changing it to Raymond Acquah. No, it is what I key in is what comes out of it. So the discipline, in fact, the basics I'm talking about is, do we have consequences for misbehavior? When people misbehave, is it because the misbehavior is not coming out of an IT system? That's why we are not punishing it. Or when the misbehavior becomes electronic one, then that one we will punish it. We are aware of people who are stealing money day and night. What have we done to them? We are aware of a lot of wrong procurement or misprocurement and embezzlement, payment for work not done, and etc. And we have not done anything. So let us not make a mistake and assume that digitalization is going to cure all our problems. You can digitalize and put in the garbage. You still get garbage outside of it.
Let me then ask, the other thing that's related to electronic engagements, how realistic and impactful is the plan to fully integrate the Ghana Electronic Procurement System, that's GANEPS, with the other government systems like GIFMIS? What challenges do you foresee in ensuring this integration in the first place?
Exactly the point I made just now. If you look at the Auditor General's report, I remember from 2017 coming, almost all reports that I issued, including the current Auditor General, you will see that there is always a portion of not using the GIFMIS. And the biggest corporate usually is the Ministry of Finance itself. They don't use the GIFMIS. They make payment out of it. So if you integrate the procurement system to it and government decide not to use it, we have not made any gain. I agree that the integration can help in commitment control and monitoring expenditure easily. But we must get the basics right. We don't just start putting up a story building without a good foundation. The foundation is discipline. We must ensure discipline returns to the public service. If we have discipline, then our systems can be as basic as anything. It will work.
Now, I surely would have to bring in Vitus Azim into this conversation, but before I do so, I need to get you quickly on these electronic and e-marketplace impact using digital tools to make sure that the fight is properly done.
I totally agree that when we have our foundation firmly established, it is easy to be able to do some of these digital or digitization processes and inure the benefits out of them. We are all aware of what happened in the ports, even during the late president's regime. When he went, they started trying to digitize, and still people were able to take steps to circumvent these processes. And we are aware that it's still going on. One of the things that is stated here is about the GANEPS. GANEPS is supposed to ensure that procurement is done online fully. Everything is assessed. If you need information about procurement in Ghana and you go online, you should be able to access it. And transparency is promoted. It is a good thing. But if we have a system which allows for wrongdoing to go on without any consequences, then we would not be able to make the gains we are talking about. However, I must admit that it is important. If you look at other countries who have gone this route, their systems are firmly and robustly established. They have done a very good job. And so when government or when the party talks about restructuring the public sector, particularly around the internal audit function, I believe that is where we should start from. Internal controls are critical. Yesterday, I was at the internal audits conference, their annual conference, and you hear some of the lamentations of internal auditors in the work they do on a daily basis, the risk they face because they want to stand up to executive power. And sometimes they are chief directors, coordinating directors. Then you begin to wonder if we really want to fight corruption. And in this case, the Internal Audit Agency is supposed to be having a bill in, I don't know whether it's in cabinet or wherever, which is supposed to be passed so that they have
amended bill.
Exactly.
All right, certainly.
Unfortunately,
please stay with me.
Yes.
And Mr. Domlevo, give me a second. Let me bring in Vitus Azim. Vitus Azim has been speaking about the fight against corruption for a very long time in the People's Republic of Ghana. Many thanks to you, sir, for joining us. I have a direct question on the general assessment you have of some of the things we've been saying and the elements of this particular corruption fight which has been put in the manifesto. As a general cue, the manifesto emphasizes values such as selflessness, ethics, and integrity. Do you think it will pass muster? This manifesto can be the panacea in our quest to fight corruption. Mr. Azim.
I don't think so. You see, fighting corruption involves the individuals who are in a position, first in the position to take decisions, and then in a position to act. After all, when Nana Akufo-Addo was campaigning for the elections in 2016, they told us he was incorruptible and all that. When he came in, what didn't happen? We all saw what has happened all this while. In millions of dollars, not in cities, millions of dollars. It's here, even with the computerized system, it's what you put in that comes out. Human beings put it in and then it comes out. So all the things that they have said in the manifesto about, making it whatever, is unless you have people that are committed.
But
there are trusts, there are people tampering with the ICT, and so it's not easy to get the people. And then there are people who are supposed to act on the inappropriate actions by some individuals who will not take that action. And that's the main problem. We need a change of attitude of Ghanaians, especially Ghanaian public officers, to say that enough is enough. We have done our best. We must stop corruption. So when somebody wants to influence you to do things in a certain direction, say, I'm sorry, I cannot do it. Or you may even say, I'll do it, but you don't do it and go ahead and do what you think is right.
How different, Mr. Azim, is what you're saying from the overarching theme, which says that all of these plans to fight corruption is to provide values-based leadership predicated on values such as selflessness, excellence, ethics, justice, integrity, transparency, diligence, and accountability.
It is not different. I have individuals that as the
I'm afraid I'm losing you. So if you could reposition yourself nicely, I'm sure we'll hear you better.
yeah, but I'm in a village in the Upper East, and the network is not the best.
Wow, and then you are doing perfect now. So please, you are making the point that it's not different from the values listed in the manifesto.
Yes, it's not different. If you are at the head and you're not able to do much, what do you expect those below to do it? Because they see you doing the wrong things. And that's the problem with this government. Nana Addo doesn't act on allegations of corruption. People close to him do what they want, and he keeps quiet. When they raise the allegations, he does not investigate, or even investigate. Even before they investigate, he comes out to exonerate the people. Mm-hmm. So how do you expect to see the results? You say, oh, I'm sure that you'll be exonerated. So your own appointees who are now going to investigate the people will not find anything wrong with them because they know what you expect. And so it goes down. So what they have said in the manifesto, if it doesn't change, it will be the same.
Except that this is going to be a Bawumia government. Bawumia has stated categorically that he's not corrupt, he's incorruptible. Can you place a lot of trust and hope in the man who is now going to lead the government if he wins on behalf of the NPP?
You see, it's good to say that, oh, he was a vice president, he didn't have power. But does he have the encouragement to take serious action on those that are involved? And that's the problem. Even if you are not corrupt, if you are not incorruptible, but the people that have gone ahead to campaign and give you funds to campaign for your election, are you going to be able to control them?
Do you think he can?
If you cannot say you can do that, then we're wasting our time.
Do you think he can do that?
I don't think he can do that. Because the way he was brought in, when you even look at the primaries in Kumasi, the amount of public funds that were put to support him to win the primaries, we cannot expect him to go against the wishes of the people that pushed him there. They wanted him there, and they did whatever they could to get him elected. And that's why there were problems even within his party. Because internal primaries, why do you spend so much money to influence people?
Okay.
Even from their public resources.
All right. Now, I guess I can leave it off here and give you some time to rest and enjoy your evening, sir. I am very grateful to you for your time with us on this show, Vitus Azim.
Okay.
Vitus Azim is a man who has spent so many years fighting corruption, speaking about it, and sharing his opinion on these matters. You are still in studio with me, is the powerful woman at the helm of affairs at the Ghana Integrity Initiative, Mary Awilana Ada, and also on Zoom is the former Auditor General in the People's Republic of Ghana, Mr. Daniel Domelevo. Lady and gentlemen, I asked this question because, as he said, you need a certain level of temperament, competence, ability, and even personal moral position to be able to lead the fight against corruption. Dr. Bawumia says he's incorruptible. He's mentioned the values that's going to dictate how governance or public service is going to be done. Can you put a lot of hope and trust that he will be able to deliver, even with the difficulties you have raised with the content?
For any values we are talking about. They may have done so in public service or in their other lives. I say so because they are encountered with a lot of significant challenges. We have a lot of issues around state capture, people sitting behind who are drawing the strings and making them there. So the puppet master is there, ensuring that you do their will. And because of the way our campaign financing regime is in Ghana, it is a difficulty for anybody to tell me that they are, apart from being competent, they have the most integrity, they cherish the cultural values, and for that matter, they would not do much. And we have heard it before. The accounts, you say, agrobeswa, if you are not pa, and we shouldn't be expecting, say, a best to wait. So we are saying that what we've seen in the past, perhaps Akufo-Addo was not corrupt, but the reality in government is the fact that people are giving you money from left, right, center, which is not regulated. And such people come in to also receive their compensation when time comes. So they are taking accountability from you for what they have spent. And so until such a time that this country has a regime that regulates our campaign finances, puts in place some very specific indicators on how much people can give, the disclosure regimes therein, then we would be saying that people who say they have integrity are doing so. But we see that people are pushing. We have a president in place, but people determine the situations they must be in at every point in time. So it's difficult. And from the past, judging from the past, it is very difficult for me to sit here and say that this person has integrity, and for that matter, they would live and walk the talk. Until we see it, then we would all say, are you cool? But until that time, we need, and one of the key recommendations the GII made from the Citizens Manifesto we captured is around this subject of campaign financing. Because it takes a lot from us. It's not just in Ghana. Transparency International has done a lot of work around political party campaigning and also the subject matter of campaign financing. We need, as a people, to begin to appreciate that if we want to. But to say that I believe anybody now, it's a difficulty. We would want to see action to go ahead.
Mr. Domlevo, the man says if you want a president you can trust to initiate and drive innovative and impactful ideas to transform Ghana. He has personal integrity and can be trusted to fight corruption. A president you can trust to work for you tirelessly and selflessly. From your experience, are these words we can rely on in the fight against corruption?
Lead me not into temptation. You are leading me into temptation.
Oh, I'm just reading excerpts from that document and asking you whether these are the things required to fight corruption.
Let me put it this way.
Okay.
Does he have a track record that he wants us to look at?
Yes, he says he has personal integrity.
Let me finish. Can he tell us that, well, it was said that about 80 million Ghana cedis was used for the primaries. Can you tell us where it came from?
Where he got it from?
You should have made that known to us, that as a vice president, he doesn't get even 50,000 a month. So for the 8 years, he will not make more than 10 million.
Okay.
So I've told us that apart from my salary, I have these sources. My father left this. I have this investment, etc., which brought about 80-something million, and I used part of it to do my party funding. Then we will have clapped for him and no. I think, Raymond, the question is this. If I tell you that if I get the opportunity, I'll fight corruption, will you doubt it?
Not at all.
I'm sure you will not doubt it because I have shown that I can fight corruption.
Certainly.
And what beats my mind is politicians, when they are promising, they promise as if they have the power. Then when they fail to deliver, they say, I didn't have the power. When you were promising, you should have said that, look, me, I'm just a mate. I'm not the president. So the president is going to move the country from taxation to production, not me. Then if he doesn't move, he will tell us that, look, it is not me. I told you that it is the president. And he didn't move it. But I said, we have even arrested the city, the dollar. We have done so and so. Now, when things turn around, That's why I was telling some colleagues today who were talking about the same thing. I said, I hope we don't talk about this in the next 4 years, and you and I are told this is a warp logic, that he promised that he's going to do it, and he didn't do it, and we think he was going to do it. So let me say, you need a track record. If you are a leader, you need to say that, look, this is not within my mandate, and I cannot do it. This one is within my mandate, I can do it. I've not seen that. The only thing we hear is that there are big promises. When it comes to the time of accountability, then we dodge responsibility and say, no, I am just a vice president, I'm just a mate. If you are a mate, you must let people know that you are not on the steer. So the driver says he's going to send us from Accra to Kumasi. You don't promise people that come, we are sending you to Kumasi. Then when we arrive at Isuhuma and we stop, we say, no, but it's not Kumasi. You say, no, I'm not the one holding the steer. So I don't have that track record to believe what you are saying.
Now, that's an interesting perspective. Now, let me come in studio to you. You have assessed the corruption element. I'm sure immediately you got the manifesto. You draw down to section 8.3,
yes,
seeking, among other things, yes, to see whether or not it passes muster. To your appreciation and review, is this the panacea to the fight against corruption in Ghana?
Raymond, I think I've made some comments which show that this is not exhaustive enough. I must admit that they have put in place like the lifestyle audits, which we have advocated a long time now, that we need that in place to ensure that we are fighting corruption. But as a manifesto which came with, I think, 260 pages, I was expecting that at least we would have some dynamic or specific strategic interventions that will show how this would be done. But they are just statements that have been made. And again, we made ourselves available, so we had engagement. So perhaps maybe these were not taken into consideration. But
you had made proposals.
Most engagements. I talked about the campaign financing regime. If you want to fight corruption, just like Mr. Domelovo has said, you need to show us that I am not corruptible. What are some of the indicators of that incorruptibility you want to bring on board? So we want to do lifestyle audits. From where are we starting? How are we doing it? Simple, just a few sentences to demonstrate that we'll do that. So for me and my appointees, wherever there is an issue, I would ensure that people, if there is any unexplained wealth that has come up, I would ensure that the Office of the Special Prosecutor, as his law is reviewed to capture some of this so that we don't have people getting away with corrupt behavior. That is what we want to hear. So if you talk about enacting the Corruption or Corrupt Practices Act, we want to see in there that you are expanding the definition of corruption. You have looked at what UNCAC is saying in the preventive regimes, looking at all those parameters apart from bribery. You are ensuring that people who engage in conflict of interest are brought to book. You are ensuring that everything that is within the mandate of corruption goes to the Office of the Special Prosecutor. And anyone who dares to defy whatever is happening there, you will deal with them drastically. And so you see, when you make such pronouncement, it gives hope to the people that this person is really serious. Then you talk about internal audit, which is prevention. Because the external audit will do the firefighting approach. But if we have effective internal audits, and we have just 3 lines, in fact, it's about 2.5 lines. So we want to have procedure very well documented. How are we doing it? Just a few things to demonstrate the way we are going to carry on. So we will pass the law. If it is not passed before the end of this parliament, we would ensure that the audit agency or internal audit agency is separated and has independence and the power, the muscle to be able to do the work they are supposed to be doing in all the MDAs, MMDAs, and others. If you say this, anybody who is listening to you would say, wow, this person really means business. But to go straight that we are going to do this, promote procedural accountability and prevent waste, how? These are statements that have been made. But admittedly, there are some things. I come to Article 286 again, and I say that there are best practices around.
All right.
So we should be able to pay attention to some of this. We have spoken about the issues around India and public servants, their behaviors. During elections, we will cut and ensure that people are doing the right things. You will not commission. In India, you cannot go commissioning projects 6 months to elections. The public officer has that responsibility. Why don't we state some of these? It's so simple.
More progressive ways of dealing with the problem.
It's so simple. We should be proactive and progressive in the things we are doing and give power to the institutions that are supposed to be implementing some of them.
Let me ask you the same question, Mr. Domilevo. As a whole, do you think this is the panacea to the fight against corruption?
It helps. It will contribute if it is done and done well. The devil is in the details. When we get to know the details, we will know whether it is or not. One of the things that they said, which I completely agreed with them, was they said that they were going to publish the list of those who benefit from scholarship. I think that is, they should let us know who is that poor person who we are using public funds to support. Is he a minister? Is he a member of parliament? Is he a chief? Whoever it is, we want to know that one. I think it is outrightly fine. Like Mary said, yes, all those laws are good. But what makes it difficult for some of us to trust the promises is the fact that it's not only the Internal Audit Agency Act, which has been pending for a very long time, and at which I think will actually strengthen the internal controls in the public sector. It has been gathering dust for a very long time. What about the Conduct of Public Officers Act? The first one was in 2013, during NDC time. When I came to office in 2018, thereabout, a new one was prepared by Gloria Kufu. So I have a copy of the 2018 one. There is a new version, I think 2022 or whatever. And even His Excellency himself promised us last year that he was going to enact a law said that asset declaration will be at the international standard. Where are we now? So if this same group of people are telling you, of course, the leader is different, but it's the same group with the same ideas and mindset. They are telling you that now we are going to do everything. It becomes a bit difficult. But we wait and see. 2025 is not too far. We will soon be there. And we see how these things are implemented in case they win the election.
I mean, this is the commencement of our conversations on what manifestos and the content is supposed to be. Over the weekend, the NDC will also put out their own. Certainly, we should be able to put them together and compare like for like and see whether or not we'll make progress. And Mary, I'm very grateful to you for joining us this evening. She is the Executive Director of the Ghana Integrity Initiative. Also to you, former Auditor General, for joining us on today's edition of UPFront. And for all of you who watched today's edition, I'm also grateful to you for joining us tonight.